This is the last lecture in this introductory section on the ESP32, and we'll have a look at the 3 powering options. First and most typical option is to use the USB port, so micro USB port, which we use both for power and for serial communications and for uploading a sketch to the ESP32. Just plug that into your computer's USB port or to a USB compatible power supply and you're good to go. The second option is to connect an external unregulated power supply to the 5-volt pin and ground pins. Anything between around 5 and 12 volts should work, but it is best to keep it around 6 to 7 volts to avoid losing too much power as heat on the voltage regulator. So I've got an example here where I powered my ESP32 dev kit using my bench power supply with a variety of input voltages. So you can see here I'm powering it at the moment at 5 volts. Increase the input voltage to 6 volts, all good. And to 7 volts, 8, 9. And there's a 10 volts, and I didn't go any further above that. Another option that you have is to power your ESP32 using a 3.3 volt regulated power supply by connecting it to the 3.3 volt and ground pins. So the 3.3 volt pin is up at the top left of the board right next to the antenna. You got to be very careful when you do that though, because if you power your ESP32 this way, you are bypassing the onboard voltage regulator that is on board the dev kit, and therefore your module has no protection against over voltage. So be very careful to make sure that your input voltage is regulated and safe. So these are the 3 power options. First, via the USB port. Second, via unregulated voltage between 5 and 12 volts that goes through the ESP32 dev kit power regulator. And 3, via the 3.3 volt pin. Got to be very careful with that, not to exceed the 3.3 volt limit, or your ESP32 module will be damaged. Also, be very, very careful to only use one of those options at the same time. So do not power your ESP32, say, via the 5 volt pin using a 10 volt input, while at the same time you have the module connected to your computer via USB. That is a recipe for significant damage, at least to your module, if not also to your computer. Okay, so that's about it with the introduction to the ESP32 and the ESP32 dev kit hardware. Let's move on to the next section now, where we'll start our hands-on experiments with the GPIOs.